as morning draws near, I rise and say my prayer. Little piece of bread to my mouth, little tea to wash it down. It's my daily tribulation, even though I'm a working man. I work so hard to make ends meet, so yeah, with one suit and one shoe to my feet. Days are getting so hard, yeah, but I got to keep on pushing on this 9 to 5, working to stay alive. On my 9 to 5, working till sun goes down. As the sun sets in the west, I pack my things and head on home, thinking about tomorrow's journey as I try these streets alone. It's my daily tribulation, oh yeah, searching for liberation, yeah. Got to step out of Babylon, take a step to Mount Zion. Days are getting so hard, yeah, but I got to keep on pushing on this 9 to 5, working to stay alive. Oh, on this 9 to 5, yeah, working till sun goes down, sun goes down. Oh, days are getting so hard, yeah, but I got to keep on pushing on this 9 to 5, working to stay alive. Oh, on this 9 to 5, working till sun goes down, sun goes down, sun goes on this 9 to 5, yeah, working to stay alive. Oh, on this 9 to 5, yeah, working till sun goes down. Oh Lord, got to keep working, got to keep working.
With Al McFarlane. That's the music of Phil McFarlane and Earth Cry. They're based in Kingston, Jamaica. A great way to start a program, a great way to start a Monday. Music that makes you want to feel like you're in Jamaica, soaking in the sun and picking up the vibes, but soon come, as we Jamaicans say. I'm glad to be here Monday. We talk with friends and collaborators and community about the challenges, the opportunities of building community. Always glad to have our partner organization on board, Hawthorne Neighborhood Council. Diana Hawkins is here, and Andrew Barnhoff. Thank you both for collaborating, supporting, and creating a place where we can invite other neighborhood organizations to join us and to share around ideas of building community. Today is a follow-up to a presentation that we began a while back. We talked to Clarence Jones and team who were doing research on the opioid crisis. And today they're going to make that report. Let me introduce Clarence first of all. Clarence Jones is the founding member of HUMAN, HUEMAN. It's a community collaboration of organizations that promotes healthy men, healthy families, and healthy communities. HUMAN is a healthcare, community, and professional organization seeking to address the healthcare crises among young and middle-aged men, primarily men of color. The HUMAN Partnership has been working together since 2011. They provide yearly lunch and learns where chronic illnesses and issues impacting the community are discussed among academic, governmental research, and community members. A summary of the conversations is then disseminated back to the community for further discussion and action. Also, a yearly set of health fairs are held in South Minneapolis and beyond now to provide healthcare screening and access to community members. HUMAN also sponsors other organizations that are providing healthcare services or recognition to the community. And Clarence has had extensive experiences in collecting data and collaborating with organizational leadership, community partners, and members in promoting community wellness and access to health services. He's created, planned, and orchestrated strategic health events with the community and faith-based partnerships. In 2017, for example, more than 50 health fairs were held with local health organizations, and they invested in over 15,000 free health screenings for members of community. There's more to say. We'll let him say it by himself, but also on today's program, Karen Munson. Karen, is that correct? Yeah, Karen. Okay, Karen, just briefly, Dr. Munson is a professor at the University of Minnesota School of Nursing, where she coordinates the DNP nursing informatics specialty and directs the Center for Nursing Informatics. Her expertise is in public health nursing and nursing informatics. And her intervention effectiveness research employs diverse methods, including theory-based analysis, data mining, visualization, and longitudinal analysis. Dr. Munson leads the Omaha Systems Community of Practice and is the director of the Omaha System Partnership for Knowledge Discovery and Health Quality Care within the Center of Nursing Informatics. She's worked extensively with healthcare agencies and systems regarding documentation. Let's see, I lost my place here. Documentation issues and data management. Also on the call is Mickey Elder, Milton Mickey Elder, PhD, joined the Department of Family Medicine and Community Health Research faculty in 2014. He studies translational research with the goal of improving health outcomes by transforming the public's relationship to healthcare and research. He's the founder and director of a primary care practice research network of federally qualified health centers. They explore research ethics, patient engagement, and patient safety. Dr. Elder has chaired a biomedical institutional review board and served as an associate editor for Progress in Community Health Partnerships, Research, Education, and Action. He earned a PhD from the Committee on History of Culture at the University of Chicago. A great team, great conversation. And Clarence, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm excited that we have a chance and a format for sharing this information across several platforms. We're broadcasting live to Facebook, and I think we're sharing as well to YouTube. And so this is a great way to share the information. Thank you so much, Clarence.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Al, that was the most phenomenal introduction I've ever had. It was. In fact, I had written out some things, but I don't think I have to say those things. But you're absolutely right. We are a coalition collaboration of organizations that are working together to make our communities healthier. About 4 years ago, we were approached by one of our members to talk about the opioid crisis in our community and how it was a major issue. And after some conversations with our community members, we decided that we really needed to do something about this, that this was going to be something that's emerging. We had to be proactive in terms of our work. As we often talk about, we did not want to repeat the crack cocaine type of interaction with our community. It was not going to be a crime for us and a medical experience for some other people. So when we started this work, we had to find because we are a coalition and a collaboration, we had to find an organization that we could work with that could take the lead. I always tell people I'm not an opioid specialist, okay? And so what I try to do in our work is I am called a community health strategist. My job is to find the people that should be taking the lead and to allow them to do that. And so in our work, what we have found was that Hawthorne Neighborhood and the Northside Coalition had already been engaged in this work. And so our goal was to come alongside of them and to support them with this project. So the University of Minnesota first gave us a small seed where we did about an initial survey where we went to the community and asked them, how do you define opioids? You know, and because we found out that in our community, we weren't calling them opioids, we called them smack, we called them like 16 or 18 different names. And we said like, okay, so this is where one of the problems come in is that while we're talking about one thing, they can use language to criminalize it. And so we decided that we were going to have a conversation where we would put it all on the table so that when you said opioids or you said smack, you were talking about the same thing. What makes our work so special in this process is that we did not set our work up to find blame. We knew that our community was struggling. What we were trying to do was trying to figure out how do we reveal the strengths of our community and how do we collectively approach this issue with our partners. And so the work that we're going to show today is not the final end of our work. It is just part of the journey. But it will show how we work together to address the issue, to address opioids. Now, the other part about this work is that it was not done in the dark. We had many members. I think if I would start naming members out, we would have more than 100 members, at least 100 members from our community that was involved in this work. And so I just want to say thank you. As we go through the presentation, we will show you some of the members that were there. Special thanks to, and I'll just show you when it comes up. But Karen, are you ready? Can you do the first slide? Karen, Dr. Munson and I are going to kind of play off each other today. So if you can share.
So before you guys start, I just want to say kudos to you. And over the course of the conversation, I'd like for you and your team to talk about the value of data-driven decision making, because too often our community sees itself as victims of research, meaning the subject of research,
right,
never the beneficiary of it.
Right.
And I think what you have done with intentionality is say that this thing has to be based on the language, the spirit, the experience, right, and the articulated needs of the community. Right. That is what guides this research. And in doing so, you hope to elevate our appreciation, our embrace of data to help us chart pathways to resilience and bountifulness in our community. So keep that in mind as a question. And as you make your presentation, if there are points that illustrate that, please bring them up, okay?
Thank you. Dr. Munson, could you bring up the slides, please?
Yep, I think Calvin is putting it up now.
Okay,
there we go.
Great.
Calvin.
Great. Can we do this? Okay. So first of all, our first slide, hopefully get that right. Okay. Can we get that into a PowerPoint or we're gonna work on that? First of all, I think you can see that this really was a collaboration. The city of Minneapolis for this particular project put up some money that we gave to the community, and one of the things that we say whenever we do our work, the community benefits the most. You know, so this project was not set up for the university to benefit the most or for necessarily for human to benefit the most, but for our community members. And so we provided a variety of different ways in which our community members were able to get some funding. So, second slide, please. So we want to acknowledge the fact, I said a little bit earlier that we had more than 100 people who were part of this. I mean, we had community members that actually had a meeting where they actually went through the My Strength, My Health, and actually translated the language from clinical niche to community. And we want to acknowledge that the city of Minneapolis, Suzanne Young, but really Hawthorne Huddle, Diane and Andrew and Audrey, I mean, they really put a lot of work into making this. And I want to make sure that we always acknowledge them, as well as one of the groups that you see that here, and I think this will be available for other people. Metro State actually had their students also participating, asking questions, and so it was a really wonderful opportunity for us as a community to take a look at the issue that was affecting all of us. Next slide, please. Karen's going to talk more about this, but My Strength and My Health was an app that was part of the Omaha system. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to take a look at taking a look at the Omaha system, taking a look at My Strength, My Health. There were like 42 health domains that are available for us. We wanted to ask the community what was important for them. The health topics that happen that you see here in this particular slide is that the topics come under my living, my mind and network, my body, my self-care. In the Omaha system, they have a more clinical terminology for that, but for My Strength, My Health, this was the way that the questions were identified and how they were grouped together. So this is and again, Karen will talk more about this. Next slide, please. Here's what made our work different. Whenever we talk about the academic community, it's usually done to and on a population. It's usually created by researchers. It highlights the issues or the problems in a population. And then whatever they learn, they put it in a publication and papers, and the community really doesn't find out about them until 5, 10, 15 years later. And so it's really a very oppressive kind of thing. And so we wanted to change that paradigm. We were not going to do that with this one. So our particular project, it was done for the community. It was created with the community. The data that we have, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in another slide, it tells the story of the community. So this is the community's words that they're saying themselves. And then the other thing that I liked about this is that we continuously disseminated information to the community at all phases. I mean, everything that we did it was always apparent, it was always clear, always transparent, it was always honest. We didn't always agree on everything, but that was just part of the learning process and part of the growth that we had. But what we wanted to do was we were just not going to just sit back. We wanted to have some meaningful change. Next slide, please. So here we go. Diana, Al, we were out there. Hey, we said, check us out. We want you to vet us because we want to vet you. We wanted to make sure that people would never be able to come back to us and say, well, why didn't you tell us that? If we didn't tell you that, it's because we didn't know it or you didn't ask the question. Okay. And so part of what we wanted to make sure, like I said before, is that we always had community connection. And I really do appreciate Al, for you allowing us, and Diane, for you inviting us to be on this program so many times. It was just phenomenal, but it was part of what we had to do and what we needed to do. So this was a COVID opioid project. Now, originally when we started off with this particular project, we were going to go into our community and we were going to do all these surveys almost face to face. COVID came, that changed everything. So we had to quickly adapt and adjust to that. And so this is part of why this was a transforming kind of a project, but it was really designed to really have the real impact of the community. Next slide, please. So once again, I was saying that the particular My Strength, My Health had 42 domains. The community chose these 13. So my living, home, safe at home, my mind and network. I'm not going to read this to you because this will come back. I mean, we'll want to keep going. My body, what was my pain, my consciousness, my self-care. Tell me about your sleeping. Tell me about your substance abuse. But this was not, this was not designed to say to the community, you got a problem with opioids. This was designed to ask them, how are you doing? And as a result of that, we would begin to hear about the issues that they were facing around opioids. Because what we wanted to do was to be able to go back to them with a program, or not a program, but a plan to really help make a difference and to change that paradigm. Next, please. Again, the strengths, the challenges, and the needs. This is really what we were looking for. And Karen will talk a little bit more about this, but we had a rating system about your strength. How well do you feel about these things? What are your challenges? We wanted to find out about your challenges. We want to find out what your needs were. We're not looking for your problem, and say things like, there's something wrong with you, but we were trying to figure out how can we help you. Next slide, please. So when our project started, we were particularly looking at zip codes 554 and 551 because we were looking at the African American community. We were looking at what the issues were in the African American community. We were looking at what the issues were in certain areas, those kinds of things. And so our whole work was really designed about how do you flesh this out. When we go out and we start sending out this information, we were trying to make sure that our community was represented in that. And so the area codes that we had was 554 and 551, which was also, I believe, St. Paul. So we know that there was a large population of communities of color, I think people say BIPOC, in those areas. And so we wanted to make sure that we were capturing the information that was there. Next slide, please. So overall, we had 577 responses, and we stopped counting. And we got this in about a month. Our whole goal was to do 400 in 3 months. We had 500 in a month, which meant that there were people that were interested in it. Now, the interesting thing about it was that while we had focused in on 554 and 551, people were so excited about it because we did have an incentive with it, that they started sending it. We started getting things from California. We started getting things from around the country. In fact, we got things from around the world. That shows the impact of Mr. McFarlane's and Insight News. That's what it does. But we had to be really clear that it was really designed for a specific area. So what you see here, out of the 577 people, 68.4% were between 25 and 44. 54% were male. 23% of the population were Black African Americans. 24% were Hispanic Latinos. 66% were married. 95% they completed by themselves. And again, we know that this is this could be considered a biased sample because we're talking about people would have access to computers and iPhones and things like that. And again, we started off wanting to make it a person-to-person kind of thing, but COVID changed that. But we were still able to use this information in a way in order to create some things for our community. Next, please. So these are some of the numbers. I'm going to start letting Karen go here. But we found out of the numbers that we had surveyed, people live with an average of 3 people. People were interacting with other people, average of 4 to 5 times a day. People had an average of strength. There were strengths that they had an average of 7 concepts out of the 13. They had challenges. Out of the challenges section, there were 8 concepts, and then they had needs. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what does this really mean. Okay, next one, please. Minneapolis, we had 283. Non-Minneapolis, we had number was 264. Again, they were more often female, and then more often they were single. Next. And Karen, you can come back and explain this one.
Okay, so thank you, Clarence, and brilliant job kind of setting the stage here for a few more numbers that we'd love to share with you. The reason we have this 283 and the 264 for non-Minneapolis is, we just took advantage of all those other people who got enthusiastic about the survey, and so we could actually see Minneapolis as compared to like the rest of the world, or what we might consider elsewhere. So we got a good look at Minneapolis, and we looked at Minneapolis in comparison with everybody else. And that just gives a better way to understand the whole picture. And so for Minneapolis, there were more women who responded and more often single people who responded compared to everywhere else. Next slide, please. Another difference between those from Minneapolis compared to people who are not in Minneapolis is in Minneapolis, we had more age range. Elsewhere, there were, mainly those 22, 20, or what is it?
25.
25 to 44-year-olds, but while in Minneapolis, there was more of a spread in age. Next slide. And in Minneapolis, we had a little less diversity in race, but no difference in ethnicity. So, these are kind of what you want to look at when you have survey data is how similar are our samples. They were pretty similar overall. Next slide, please. And as Clarence said, we had an average of 7 strengths per person in this Minneapolis, in the overall sample. And as you look at the right, you see those many, many bars. Well, those are the 13 areas that we looked at that Clarence mentioned at the beginning, everything from my home and neighborhood to my substance use, my pain, my mental health, all those concepts there on the right. And what we're seeing is that the blue lines for Minneapolis are a bit longer. And what that means is that people in Minneapolis zip codes had more strengths than people everywhere else who answered the survey, which is pretty interesting. And it makes you feel good to know that we in Minneapolis have got, all this going for us. And our top strengths, you can see up there at the top, home. Home is really important. Home and neighborhood as far as health go, and our spirituality and faith. These are all really important aspects of what strengths were identified here in Minneapolis. And so the least common strengths, what? Sleeping and substance use. So those, again, are areas of concern that we're really interested in this study. And we'll learn more about that going in the next slide. So we also ask people, what are your challenges? What do you need right now? And overall, people had, if you count them up by challenge, an average of 16 for the whole data set, but that's for 8 of these different, people had an average of 8 different challenges for these different topics. But again, people in Minneapolis had fewer challenges than they did in the rest of the world, which is pretty amazing. We have more strengths and fewer challenges. Our most common challenges, similar to the rest of the world, are in sleeping and in mental health, that emotional response that we are having these days with all that's going on. And so our least common challenges were in grief, consciousness, and role change. Again, really interesting kinds of ideas that we found out from our people. This is what we wanted to know about how people are doing here in Minneapolis today. Next slide. And needs. Overall, people had an average of 6 needs. And there were really no differences between Minneapolis needs and everywhere else in the world. The most common problems that people had needs were for emotions, substance use, and sleeping. So these are important things that we need to be paying attention to. Care coordination was the most frequent need category. And in Minneapolis zip codes, people had fewer information needs than everywhere else. So we already know what's going on here. We don't need more information. We just need to know how to get the help we need. Next slide. So this was an opioids related project from the beginning, and the city of Minneapolis really wanted to know what's going on with opioids, and they needed better data to help understand what's happening so that city of Minnesota can respond better around opioids and substance use. And so we included this substance use survey, of course, and if we wanted to look at this Minneapolis compared to the rest of the world, we're seeing that in Minneapolis, about 60% of people had at least one substance use challenge compared to 80% elsewhere. So that tells you right away that we are doing something right here in Minneapolis. We have less substance use problems than other people, other areas, considerably less. We have only 1.3 substance use challenges compared to 1.7 elsewhere. And our top ones are actually alcohol and exposure to secondhand smoke and tobacco products and things like that. And so the recreational kinds of substance use, drug, stereotypical kinds of opioid things are further down on the list for us. What is really interesting about this comes in on the next slide. When you think about there's an entire data set, if we look at just the people with at least one substance use challenge, these people have half as many strengths, 5 times as many challenges for 4 times as many problems and 4 times as many needs for twice as many problems. So we found something in the data that is pretty exciting, that anybody who has identified a substance use challenge has got a lot more to deal with. And that is pretty stunning. Next slide. Specifically in Minneapolis, out of those 330, 166 of those people live in this area with one of these zip codes that Clarence was showing. Care coordination was the hugest need. 58 of these 166 people said, I need help connecting with some services. And again, very few needed any information or guidance. They just want, and that was more significant. There's no difference between Minneapolis and elsewhere as far as the other kinds of needs that people mentioned. Next slide. And overall, as Clarence was mentioning, we're very interested in our own community. And so what's happening with Black African Americans living in Minneapolis or elsewhere? And there was really not much difference, except that Black African Americans from Minneapolis area had more strengths compared to those living elsewhere. And as Clarence said, we just have to help identify folks where to get the resources that they need. Next slide. So, with every research study, there's always something that you want to do better the next time. And I just want to compliment, I came into this late, and I really want to compliment Robin Austin, Sripriya Rajamani, other students from the university, Catherine and Andrew, all the community members who participated, particularly Hawthorne, and just so grateful for all your help and support. What we've learned that we want to do differently next time is that we want to make sure people can use our app to answer the questions, because it was really, we tried to do it on paper for some folks, and that just got to be too difficult. And that if we were in person with our iPads, that'd be much easier. Some folks had difficulty understanding some of the language, which, we could keep trying to do better there. We validated the language with community in the first place. We'll do it again. And My Strengths, My Health was really useful, but some folks wished that we could condense it even further than we did. And so we need to develop a new version that will allow us to customize further. And we're hoping to respond to that need. Of course, that's always driven by funding, as is everything. Next slide. But as Clarence was mentioning, are you back, Clarence? Not sure if you can speak, but we really want to focus on community-driven priorities in our next steps. So what is it we want to know? Who are the most important people to involve? And where can we spread these findings to get more community feedback? Does this snapshot of the data we were able to gather make sense? And how would community like to move this forward? I think we learned some really exciting things about our whole person health, and some things that we can be excited about, some things that we need to work on. But nothing here says that we have a terrible problem that together we cannot improve and address. Next slide. Oh, this is to remind us all that we're here for you, and that Clarence will take any feedback, and he's the person, our contact, and we're here to serve. So Al, I'm not sure Clarence is back.
I don't see Clarence back yet, but Mickey is here. And Mickey, I saw that.
There he is.
Clarence, I saw that Robin is Robin around still? Or she had joined for a second, I think. Yeah, Robin, are you there? I don't see her on the screen though.
Al, can you hear me?
I do.
I think if we could let Robin in, she would join.
Kelvin, can you? There we are. So let me introduce Robin, then we'll go ahead. So Dr. Robin Austin is an assistant professor at University of Minnesota School of Nursing, and she's got a broad range of healthcare experience, including as a registered nurse with a Master of Science in Nursing, focusing on nursing education, a doctorate in nursing practice, and a PhD in nursing, both with an emphasis on nursing informatics. And Dr. Austin's research is focused on leveraging informatics for an integrated health approach to achieve optimal health for patient engagement, lifestyle modification, and for chronic disease and health promotion and wellness using digital apps and mobile platforms. Prior to nursing, she graduated with a Doctor of Chiropractic degree and has numerous hours of continuing health in areas of acupuncture, clinical nutrition, functional medicine, and exercise rehabilitation. So Dr. Robin, Dr. Austin, thank you for being here. So jump in and talk about what's been presented, and let's just move it around. Clarence, you could come back, or Dr. Eder, jump in as you wish. This is great information.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here and listening to the project. Back again, as Karen and Clarence were both chatting, just reminds me too of where we began with the project a few years ago and to where we are now. And while there's great surprising new information that we've had from this latest project that we did, I think it really is a continuation and answering of the call that was from our previous work as well, going out and having lunch and learns, just finding out what was the community talking about opioids, what was happening out in the community. And so really to do a deeper dive like we did this past fall was really exciting. So I'd like to hear from others as well. But again, I'm really so thankful to be here, and to Diana and Andrew and Clarence as well. So thank you so much.
Clarence?
Dr. Mickey, why don't you have something to say? Can you hear me?
I can, and good afternoon. And I think one of the things I want to add is to remind all of us today. Al asked us to talk about the importance of data-driven decision making. And I want to say that one of our goals is to go back to the community and share data like this and really challenge each other to understand what it means from different perspectives. Karen contrasted Minneapolis residents with non-Minneapolis residents, and also people within Minneapolis with a substance use issue and people without. And I think it's been rewarding and helpful to have people in community meetings that represent these different positions talking with each other. When you asked us to address resilience, Al, I think one of our challenges is, again, as was outlined early on, is to involve the community in both the interpretation and in charting the direction we're going to go in collectively. And that is a form of resilience, willingness to take an honest look at what we're doing well and perhaps what we're not doing so well, to agree on it together and to chart some future course. Let me just add one thing. We're really learning at this point how to put strengths, needs, and challenges into practice in terms of understanding what's happening in communities. And I defer to our community members and their points of view as really having central importance for how we chart direction going forward, and acknowledge that combining strengths, needs, and challenges is a work in progress.
You know, your conversation, Dr. Eder, reminds me that for the longest time, the Academy looked at the Black community and or through the analysis or the lens of Dr. Daniel Monahan. And the approach was one that was based on deficits. So the community was defined by what it didn't have, what was wrong with it, and its defects. And the unstated with that approach was that if absent those deficiencies, they would be just like us white people, and that white people, by definition, is the standard of what it is to be human or healthy. So that is the environment out of which our skepticism and criticism of the research industry grows, because we think, no matter how well-intentioned, that premise deserved the reality of our humanity and of our dignity and of the value of our voice in creating a method for examining present history and the future. And so what I love about what this project represents is that from the beginning, and what you just described, Dr. Eder, was this approach that examined strengths and challenges together. And that means you're looking at the whole of the humans, the community, the individual's experience, right? And the core of the examination of the individual's experience begins with the asset, the essential awareness of what it is to be and what I'm good at and what I'm best at and what I like and what I do and who I am, all those positive traits. And then having stated those, you create the opportunity to look at things that are not consistent with or not operating at the same level of productivity and functionality. I think that's a wonderful thing. Am I saying this wrong? Am I giving you a proper recitation of how?
I was just going to ask you, Al, if you'd be willing to co-author with us. You say it so well.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is just so clear. It's so clear. I think it's wonderful. So,
I wanted to acknowledge, Al, that maybe Robin could talk a little bit about the way in which, so we have a younger generation of scholars who aren't brought up on just deficit thinking and on identifying problems. And so maybe Robin can talk a little bit about the kind of, there is a long tradition, community-based asset development work. It goes back to scholars at Northwestern in 40 years, but now that's being expanded in new ways, and hopefully Robin can provide some more details about what we're doing with the Hawthorne Neighborhood Group and other groups locally.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also, Diana and Andrew, please jump in as well. I'd love to hear from you and bring you in the conversation too. And Al, as you were talking about strengths-based perspective and data-driven components as well, I really thought of this project allowed us to bring in that and actually have strengths data to say, look at this, these are our assets. This is what we can talk about. This is actionable items, as well as we know there are challenges and needs, but let's try to bring in the data, the positive data, into the conversation at the same time. So I think that was really all this work has been so exciting for me to have that component to bring into the conversation. And again, it's when I say that, it's the community conversation. It's the community bringing in, and we're bringing in that voice. But really, I think being able to work with our community partners, Diana, Andrew, Clarence, and others on the call has been really that key point of really bringing this out into the community and saying, what do you think? How would you like to include? And are we asking questions in the right way? If not, how do we change it? How do we engage in this dialogue to really bring in that specific language that is actionable to everybody at the table? And again, too, representative of then having that data that is then representative of those that we are working with as well. So that for me is really exciting, and being able to have that component to really have a foundation, I think, and then to draw from to move forward as well has really, really been super exciting. So Diana and Andrew, I'd like to bring you guys in and have any comments and feedback as well. Would be great.
Well, I'll just say really quick that sometimes as a organization like Hawthorne, we can lead a little too much with our heart, I think, and a little too much with emotion. And so from my perspective, at least, it's great to have data to back up what we see. And that's something that we couldn't do on our own. And so that's really something that I found great for Hawthorne and our community to come from this project.
For me, you guys just don't know, when you guys came to me, just to have this power of professionals behind our community members to say, we need you, we want you to do that, that was very powerful for me. And I can't wait for the next time, because just to sit in meetings and to gain the knowledge that I have from you guys, it means a lot to me. It really does. And to be able to go out into the community and say, here's what we're looking for, you know, not putting blame on them, but how can I help you? That is real powerful. So thank you guys. And I look forward to working with you.
So I have a couple of questions. Yeah, go ahead, Clarence.
No, you ask your questions. I'm still having that little scatter with my internet. I just love you all. And
You've got an unstable connection, I think, because you're in and out. You're frozen right now. Till you regroup, let me ask these questions. And again, my sincere appreciation and praise to all of you, the entire team, for doing this work. I think is phenomenal. And so Clarence mentioned in the introduction, I think, that you have some 500 or so people participate, about half of those in Minneapolis, half elsewhere. Give me an idea of what your targets were. What were your original goals? How many people did you plan to? And did you meet that, first of all, both in the area of Minneapolis? And it sounds like the people that were not in Minneapolis ended up showing up as a bonus pool and a way to measure. So that's one question. And then the second question is, I think the numbers indicated that you had about 25% participation of Black. Maybe I missed it, but did you reach the level of participation by African Americans and Blacks that you wanted? Did you reach more than you suspected? Or does the experience or reach level suggest to you that you need to do more to engage that segment of the community. So I've got more questions. Let's start with those, Robin and Karen.
Sure. So yes to both. We were very delighted with the response, and it was so overwhelming that we just had to cut it off. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the success was these events that we used, in collaboration with the community to really reach out to communities of color. And comparatively, what's the census of Minnesota compared to what the level of African American responses? We certainly did achieve our goal of trying to reflect the community as we wanted to. We would have always accepted more. Mm-hmm. So, you're never done. but we were thrilled, actually.
And a question, because the data that you presented kept referring to sleeping. And so I'm just said, I have sleep apnea, so it hit me personally. So the question is, why was the question of sleeping so important that it came up on two different, I think, of the questions? What was the basis for that question?
Sure, I can jump in as well. So I think for looking at, as we talked about before, the whole person and really a holistic perspective, and what we know about sleep and the importance of sleep is, I think it's really important to include that component. So as you said, sleep apnea, other issues, especially around the heightened time of COVID, other health going on, things like that. I think sleep is a part of our well-being. So being able to have that component of what we understand about people and community, and being able to address that on a larger level, public health wise, and having really, again, that data piece is, I think, really essential to have that. So others can jump in, certainly. But when I look at that or hear that, it makes me again think of holistic health and whole person health. And that's a part of us. In order to heal and have good health, we have to also have sleep as well. So,
And that's the beauty of our instrument, the Omaha system, and My Strengths, My Health, is that we look at a comprehensive whole picture of health. And these 13 concepts were chosen by community. So community said, I want to know how people are sleeping. And then we included that sleep topic as one of our 13.
I thought that was fascinating. I was pleased to see it and hear it as you presented, because to me, it seems like that's a point of departure for public education, that our community, all communities, need to be reminded and educated about the value, the purpose of sleep. Because I think we don't get that enough. We think that I'm from the school of hard charge, right? Don't stop. Where I fall is where I lay. When I can't think anymore or say anymore or move another muscle, then I fall out and sleep. And when I get up again, hard charge again. But that's really kind of dumb. It's really kind of stupid, right? And I probably would better serve my purposes and my potential if I had a realistic and appropriate and informed knowledge of the purpose, the power, the restorative and healing power of sleep. But that's something we haven't had generally in the community. So that's why I'm saying this is so exciting to see that in the questionnaire and to hear people responding to it, because to me, it means there's a place now that we can begin to build on and talk about how important it is. And that will bring results in people's individual lives. It doesn't cost anything. You just don't know. It costs you a lot not to know. So that's one thought. So then I also was impressed by one of the results where Dr. Karen, you mentioned that when people listed challenges, I think, when the either opioid use or drug abuse is a challenge, where there was abuse shown, you indicated there were multiple life challenges that were associated. So it's not just one thing, but all these things are interrelated, interconnected. And if we're going to be responsive to healing, we have to look at it more broadly. Would you elaborate on that some more? I thought that was a powerful statement that you were making.
Thank you. I too was stunned when I found those results, that it's so much more likely if there's at least one substance use challenge that you're going to have many, many other challenges and needs. And I think, this isn't necessarily, we can't say one causes the other, but we can say there's a very strong relationship there. And so it behooves us in every encounter when we know somebody's in a situation where there's even the knowledge of some sort of substance use, or even a relationship in which substance use is happening, even if it's a family member, or even if there's secondhand smoke in the household, all of those things predispose us to more and more challenges. So that's when we need to get to know the person. And we need to understand better what's the situation and where's the pivot point where we can have that conversation about what's really going on here, and really do the personal inquiry. We don't know people well enough anymore to really understand things. We have to make relationships happen. And that's a key indicator that here's where a relationship could really give us more information about what we need to do.
Well, wonderful. What are the next steps? So what's going to happen next? Well, first question is there a narrative? Insight News would love to publish the narrative, or to publish several stories that interpret the data. So I'll just throw it out there to Clarence and to you, Dr. Robin, Dr. Karen, and Dr. Mickey, that as partners with Hawthorne, we would be glad to run a series of stories in Insight News, just presenting this data in a narrative, digestible form for the people that read our newspaper and engage our various platforms. That's number one. And then if that's something that we can do, let's make it happen. Number two, what's the next step?
Here's where we really need Clarence, and he's having some challenges, but maybe he can chat with us. We're here for you. Mm-hmm. So whatever the next step the community would like to make, we're on board. Mickey?
Yeah, I think, Al, your discussion of your own experience of sleep is a great example of what we're trying to accomplish. And I see Diane shaking her head. We really want to help change the community's relationship to science and to data. Mm-hmm. So that we're not the by sharing it and by having people engage with it, it raises consciousness of the issues, and it raises people's thought processes about their relationship to the issues. And that in of itself is important. It's not enough, but it is opening up a discussion of science and the idea that we may not see the world in the same way, but we do live in the same world. In one perspective, and in another perspective, we don't. And we're trying to figure out how to bring these points of view together. So even just sharing and talking is an important step forward for us.
That's wonderful. Any other comments, Robin?
Yeah, I kind of echo what everybody's been saying as well. And I think, as Karen said, we're here for you. And I think we can learn a lot from all the work that we've done up until this point. And the more we continue to hear back from community and talk about how could we revise, how could we change the language and things like that to really make it that much more streamlined and efficient, would be great next steps as well. And I see Clarence put something in the chat about working with Hawthorne on next steps. We look forward to another project to go deeper into how we might change the impact on our community. That's from Clarence.
Okay, so great. Well, listen, thank you so much. I'm looking at the chat now. So there is a note from Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne, for the comment that you put in. So listen, this has been a wonderful program. Again, thank you all for the work you've done and that you're doing. We want to continue and report on and elevate this work. And we'll keep, we'll circle back to Clarence about how do we turn these into narratives that we can publish in Insight News and beyond. And we're on board for the future. Thank you all. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.